Hey and welcome back to the channel. My name is Alexander and I'm a guitarist, composer and overall music nerd from Copenhagen, Denmark. And in this video I am super excited to check out the massive new guitar plugin from Aurora DSP. Enjoy! Alright, so before we dive into the actual content of this video, I simply want to make you aware that this is a paid promotion, as you can probably see down here somewhere. And all that simply means is Aurora DSP was kind enough to grant me an affiliate link. So if you use the link down in the description and purchase anything on their site, I will get a cut or a commission, we could say, from any of the products that we purchase. So first of all, that's of course a huge honor on my side. My channel is not huge or anything special. So a company supporting a small YouTube channel like mine like this is, it's simply an honor. And on the other hand, it's a really cool way of supporting a smaller company or a newer company on the market like Aurora DSP is. Also, it's worth mentioning that Aurora DSP did not pay me anything directly and did not tell me to say anything specific. So everything you will see in this video are my own thoughts and my own experiences with beta testing and working with this plugin. Alright, so that is all for the disclaimer section. Let's dive into the actual video. Alright, so by now you're probably wondering, what does this plugin actually sound like? And I made 3 small demo tracks showcasing a few different kinds of tones that you can get out of using this plugin. If you're not so interested in that and want to watch the walkthrough where we sort of take a look around the plugin in Cubase and stuff like that, there's a timecode right here that you can use to skip to that part of the video. If you're still here, let's dive into the demos. Alright, so here we are in the screencast in the standalone version of Rhino. I know I promised it would be in Cubase, but I simply couldn't get the technical side of things to work, so it ended up being a standalone version, and it is, of course, exactly the same, right? So before we dive into the presets and play some raw guitar so you can hear what it sounds like playing through this, and I also think that is a valid point because it's like some of us use these amp sim plugins as well as an amp through our computer, right? So you don't have to have a practice amp, or you don't have to have a Line 6 Helix or XFX or something, and plug that in through your interface to be able to jam to stuff on the internet or to simply play around and stuff like that. It's very useful to have a plugin like this that you can simply open in the standalone version as well. And most plugins do this nowadays, at least the plugins that I am familiar with. So before we dive into the presets and stuff like that, let's head into the UI here and see what we got going on and talk a bit about what this plugin has to offer first of all, and also where I feel it sets itself apart. So first of all, in the top left we have the input section, fairly straightforward, right, where we have a high pass filter that we can play around with. We have a gate, fairly standard, right, and an input of course. Then we have this EQ section, and in stuff like Neural and some of the other plugins that I played around with through the last few years, usually the EQ is a sort of emulation of a physical EQ or something like that, right? Where you have a lot of control and you can that can be good or bad, right? Sometimes you can really do stuff that isn't kind of optimal. But what these guys have done, which I actually quite like, if it's done well in the sort of development end, is to have an EQ that is of course bound to some specific frequencies, and we don't get numbers and we don't get hertz and stuff like that, right? We simply have these 4 knobs, and we can of course sort of guesstimate what frequencies they're targeting and stuff like that, but it is a plugin built for guitar, so it is the sort of frequencies that we would usually go about boosting or cutting anyway, right? And that's a really kind of intuitive thing if you simply want to get going fast and want something that sounds really great out of the box. This is quite a good way to go. Of course, on the negative side, if you are a sort of producer type or simply a more guitar tone nerd, you don't have that much specific control, right? You can still choose from these 4 options to cut or boost or whatever, but you can't, not yet, at least, choose the specific frequency, right? You're sort of bound to these 4 preset EQs, right? But I actually fairly like it, and as I mentioned, if it's done well on the development end, it's a really powerful tool, and I can say, at least in my opinion, it is, and it really targets those things that I would want to hear anyway, right? Okay, so in the top right we have our cabinet section or our IR section, and again we have these presets and stuff like that, but they also have this thing that Neural also does quite well, to have this thing where you can scoop around, and here you can actually blend 4 types of IRs, and you even have these 3 options as well. Resonance, some low-end kind of stuff, presence, the high-end, and hot, I will not venture into what that does, but it also adds some, I think it adds some saturation, or at least some kind of grit or something like that, right? But if we pop that open, you get a few more options, right? So they have them they have them divided into rhythm, cleans, leads, and you can load your own IRs in as well. And you can of course drag this around and mix them exactly how you want, right? And also they have these sort of preset options for live and studio and flat that have some specific qualities bound to them as well. So this is actually very cool and really up to par with the big boys in the industry these days, right? Overall, this is still a very early version, right? And I actually haven't played around with this exact version. I think it's 1.05. So just after the first released or pre-order version, right? I actually played around with the beta most of the time. And then we move into the time-based effects, right? And here we have some different delay and reverb types, and of course you can click them on and off. And we can open up and get even more settings, right? The mixes, we can even load in a specific reverb IR, which is really cool. I haven't played around with that yet, but I can imagine you can get some really cool sounds out of that. and we have some different, as I said, reverb and delay options, right? Really cool, and as we'll hear in a minute, they also sound really, really great, and that's, at least in my opinion, a really important part of plugins like this. If you use a lot of clean stuff and ambient stuff like that, it's really important to have good sounding reverbs and good sounding delays, right? Then we have a modulation section, or effects section we can call it, with a flanger, a chorus, and a phaser. And of course we can do the same thing here of sort of unfolding the menu, and we have all of these different options, right? And I imagine like in the reverb and the delay section, that where we can choose between echo and delay, for example, or convoluted or classic, I imagine later on they will add more types of effects here as well. So this is again the very sort of basic version, right? And as I also wanted to mention, this being a really early version, and of course I'm submitting feedback as well, and if you have some that I should give to the developers and the guys who are behind this, feel free to add that down in the comments. But I have some specific things about the whole design thing, and some of the things aren't super intuitive to me, and it took me a little while to figure out some of the graphic things that I think could be a little more precise, but I'll of course tell them, and they can of course fix it in some of the later versions, which is also really cool that we get at M6 like this that has iLog and all of that stuff. So you purchase it once, now on the pre-order and stuff like that, really cheap. And you get all of the updates, so you don't have to go around purchasing it again and stuff like that. It keeps getting updated and keeps getting improved, right? And you never know what drops into a plugin like this, right? Okay, and then to the sort of main attraction, and we of course have the it's called the pre section, but it is the amp section, right? Where we have these 4 different amps that changes colors, and that's really cool. And I don't remember specifically what amps are modeled here, but I do remember it was some kind of more atypical amps, or some more boutique or more high-end amps. So it's not your standard Engel something something or 5150 or something like that. I remember it to be a bit more sort of unique, and that is maybe also why the plugin sets itself aside a little bit, because it's modeled on some more unique special amps, right? And of course here we can choose the 4 amps, and we have some basic low-end, mid, and treble knobs, very much like with the EQ, sort of preset, and not too many knobs and stuff like that. So very simple and very fast to use. We of course have a drive, and then we have these 4 different options: Screamer, 808, a classic for a metal plugin, right? And we have something called Push and Brute and Fuzz. And as far as I'm concerned, they are not working yet, but I assume in the next update they should get around to getting these, and I just assume it's different kinds of overdrive, right? That gives different kinds of push, or however you want to go about describing that, right? Okay, so now I think we talked enough. This is, you can see in the top, I made a preset called Tracking, and it's of course the preset that I used for tracking the demos that you just listened to, and yeah, it sounds like this. Right out of the box, right? So really, really, really tight, really heavy. Really, really cool. And as you can see, all of it here, I chose amp number 3, and I did a little dip here in the low mids, or the sort of low end, and yeah, that is basically it, right? It's really, really stock, really, really easy tone. And again, yeah, this was before I even recorded the demo, so I didn't quite know what kind of tone I was going for at that specific time. I just wanted something that sounded good out of the box, and this is basically what I came up with. I'm not quite sure how much I actually did with the first tone that loads up. Let's dive into some of the presets that I actually used. This is Ominous Storm, and it's the preset I used for the main tone in the very first demo. And as you can see here, I played a bit more around with some of the settings, right? So here I really honed in on the specific sound I wanted for this tuning, drop B, and for that specific drum tone that I got in that specific demo, right? So again, super easy. I didn't really spend a lot of time on this. I found that, of course, adding the high pass as I normally would on my Helix and taking out some of the high end, actually quite a lot, right? And taking out a little bit more of the low end and a little bit out of the also the low end, the sort of mud zone, right? And I actually left this mid or high mids knob alone, and I found that I got quite a lot out of playing around with the hot knob here in the cabinet section. And of course, use the studio version because I felt it sounded the best, right? But fairly easy. I maybe spent 10 minutes really dialing in this tone, so super quick. We have another one from Orange Storm, but we also have this in Danish, Månebarn or Moonchild, and it's from the kind of tapping section in demo number 3, I think it was. Of course, it doesn't sound quite the same because I used a different guitar with different pickups, but it's this kind of low gain, really percussive tone, right? Right, sounds really great for that specific situation, right? And you can hear it really breaks up when I start to pick a little harder, right? Right, so that is actually the main kind of presets that I used. I didn't save the lead presets and stuff like that. But here, lastly, before we end the video, let's just dive into the presets that are stuck. And of course, we have this very beautiful ambient clean tone. Right, really cool, really modern metal sounding, right, and all of that stuff. And of course, as I mentioned, the delays and the reverb are super beautiful and super clear, and yeah, it just sounds awesome to me. And then of course we have a bunch of overdrive presets. I specifically like this one as well, the breaking clean. Maybe on this specific guitar it's a little more than a broken up clean, right? But if I pick it really softly. Really cool as well, kind of crunchy. I wouldn't really call it a breakup tone with EMGs, but you get it. Monstrous rhythm. Yeah, and one thing before we go, we of course have lead tones as well, as you heard in demo number 2. I think this is very close to the tone I actually ended up using. I may or may not have tweaked things a little bit. Maybe if we dialed back the delay a little bit, right? And the reverb as well. Alright, so I hope that you enjoyed this look into the plugin. Again, I cannot recommend it enough. It's super simple. There are some few bugs here and there, right, and some graphic stuff that they of course need to work on. But again, if you have any feedback that I should mention to them as well, if you try out the plugin or you have some things looking at it and having me play around with it now, have some stuff you think that would be really cool, feel free to tell me down in the comments, and I will of course let the guys behind this plugin know. Yeah, that is all. I think there's an outro coming and you should definitely watch it. Alright, so that's all for the video, guys. Thank you very much for taking the time out of your day to watch it, and a special thank you to Aurora DSP for, again, supporting a small YouTube channel like mine. It truly means a lot to me and giving me the opportunity to grow alongside of you guys, and of course earn a bit of commission if any of you kind viewers out there decide to purchase through my affiliate link. Again, you can find that down in the description with the rest of the links that help support me and support the channel. And if you haven't already, please consider subscribing to the channel, liking the video, saying hi to me down in the comments, or maybe share the video with a friend who would also like to know more about this plugin. And I hope that I tempted you to go and check out Aurora DSP. They really have some cool stuff going on. They have a bass plugin out already, they have some IR stuff, and they have a bunch of new stuff coming. And this plugin is simply amazing, and this is only the 1.05 version, so I can't imagine what happens in the next couple of months or maybe along the next year when this plugin really is developed fully. So I can't stress this enough. Head down in the description, head to Aurora DSP's website and help support an upcoming company in this whole audio production, VST, whatever world. They are truly awesome and kind guys, so they really deserve it if anyone does. Alright, so that's all for this week's video, guys. Again, thank you very much for watching. Stay healthy, stay safe out there, and keep playing those sick ass riffs. Until next time, I'll see you.